the others. And remember that most of the decisions also today are taken in the councils as well are taken by sort of consensus or convincing the others that this is a good way forward.
And so you obviously sit around a table with commissioners from the other 26 member states. So you've also sat around for the last few years with Ireland's Commissioner Charlie McCreevy, and I was just wondering what kind of relationship you had with Charlie. I don't know, obviously he's from a different political background, but how do you and him get along?
Well, you see, over 5 years, or in some cases 10 years, of course, you develop a personal friendship with a few colleagues. I've been with my family to visit Slovenia, for example, in Janez Potočnik, and I've made close friends with some of them. Others I do not meet that often, but of course we meet regularly at the Commission meetings. And with Charlie, I think very often I would place myself on the opposite when it comes to the political sort of positions, but he's a good sport. He's a nice colleague, so to say. And it happens at times that I do not actually understand every word he says when he speaks very fast, or if he's a bit tired, or he's just very engaged. Then if it goes too fast, I'm sure I'm not the only one that would have a problem in. So we can turn on the French sometimes. The French version.
Well, I think that's a common problem shared by a lot of people, actually, and that's a very diplomatic answer. We might now go into the audience for a question from one of our participants. So I'm going to pass this mic out, and the first question comes from Dan, who's a student from Carlow.
I'd like to just start.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Commissioner. I was wondering what you think is the biggest challenge facing the EU today?
So what's the biggest challenge facing the EU today? And obviously there's a lot of issues that came up in the parliamentary elections on that.
Well, of course, right now we cannot think of anything else but to try to solve the economic crisis and make sure that we have a sustainable financial system also for the future. But this links to the bigger picture of sustainable development. And I really think that this ought to be sort of the vision for Europe and the way we demonstrate to the rest of the world that it is possible to combine economic growth with environmental protection and social security also for our citizens. And I think this is where we should be the masters, where we should say it is possible. We can make also our biggest capitals into the best places in the world to grow up for children and young people. And I think that also mobilizes all actors to help to contribute to that, and to show that it is possible to have smart growth in Europe, and that we take into account all these elements, both the environment, the social protection, and the social issues, and the economy. And climate is the best illustration of this, the climate change issue. So I mean, that's what will happen next in December. This is also a test for the European Union. If we will be credible in leading the way again, being ambitious enough, and having also offering the practical tools, and offering something to the poorest countries in the world, those that are first affected by climate change. They will ask for that. They will ask for money to pay for adaptation and mitigation as well. So that's the first thing that will happen, and we will have to work with the Americans to do that.
Thanks. And just, I suppose, following on from that, I mean, were you surprised with so many big issues, like you mentioned, climate change and the challenges with the global recession? Were you surprised that these global issues, which it would seem the EU is best placed to deal with, weren't as prominent as they might have been in the European elections? Was that something that surprised you, or why do you think that was?
It disappoints you, I think. I mean, I can also see, and when we have a more thorough analysis of the election outcome, it is a very mixed picture. But in those countries where the politicians and the parties have tried to introduce more of a European perspective and really engaged in discussing policies and substance issues, and not only engaging in a national fight, then the voters have rewarded that kind of behavior. And I think this is also seen for the Greens, for example. It's a reflection, I think, of exactly that people also expect more when it comes to fighting climate change. But it is still predominantly a national agenda, a national discussion, and too little of Europe. And this is what we have to invest in for the future: a more European political culture, a more European media culture, and an offer to citizens to meet and be able to develop our common interests and discuss what makes us European and what should be our vision and common work for the future.
Thanks. I think we might go to the audience for another question. I think this question we have, which was one of the most popular ones submitted online, comes from Amy from Dublin. I'll pass it out to you.
I was just wondering what you think, given the difficult economic situation that we're facing, what you think the EU can do to support creating jobs in Ireland?
So jobs in Ireland, and I mean, I don't know if you were aware, but it seems like every MEP candidate in Ireland anyway was promising thousands of jobs if they got elected to the Parliament. So I mean, is this a realistic thing the EU can provide, or what can the EU do?
I think what the EU can do is, first of all, identify the kind of European projects that really provide a European value added. That means, for example, investing in electricity grids or broadband. And I understand that this is something that Ireland will want to use. And I think the funding will be very, very important. And we discussed yesterday with women entrepreneurs and business women in Cork, and they asked for, well, from microcredits to actually a possibility to put people in training for some time until we see that times are maybe a little bit easier and they can employ them in their businesses. And this is exactly what the European funding can help to do. So I think the funds and also some of these big investments to get the money out there, and then the credits, of course. I mean, the way we use the investment bank and the European Construction Bank as well, to make sure that we invest in those projects and those, I would say, European links that will help us for the future. So we have discussed in different packages a number of actions against the economic crisis, including from control and supervision of the whole finance and banking sector to this kind of investments. So that's how we can contribute.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, in terms of specific examples, I suppose, on that, in terms of jobs, I mean, you mentioned electricity and the kind of green energy issues. Do you think Ireland specifically can benefit from that, or do you think that's something that is going to go to other countries in the EU, or would it be spread out evenly?
No, it's a matter of showing their interest, and it's a matter of being sort of on the ball immediately and saying that we want to use this money. We have projects and we will sort of forward them, or will front load our own plans and financing as well, so that we can get it done quickly and in this crisis situation. So, but there was another thing yesterday which was also clear. Unless Ireland does something to provide childcare, it will also be very, very difficult, especially for women, to enter the workforce and to keep up their role also as breadwinners in their families. So this is very, very important to the whole society, to both men and women. And I guess this is a necessary reform also for the future.
And I mean, are there lessons we can learn from Sweden's experience in terms of providing those kind of childcare facilities? Has Sweden, I mean, people often look to Sweden and Scandinavia at large for kind of examples of this kind of legislation, these kind of provisions. Do you think that there's a useful model for Ireland to follow there?
I thought you'd never ask about it. We love to say in Sweden we have a system, and they often make jokes about us that we're not exactly humble. We love to talk about our own system. But of course we have been a rich country for a long time, and we've been able to develop and reform also the childcare system so that we can offer to any family the possibility to have children in childcare, and there is a limit to how much you will have to pay.